Do that, and we're recording. Hello everyone, it's a blustery, grey, horrible day here in Yorkshire. Not sure what it's been like where you are, but yeah, thoroughly unpleasant day. But all the better now for our little session of Discover Tai Chi for Limb Power. So take your places. Those people who are watching later, welcome. And again, just follow along. I'm going to do a kind of pick and mix from the Shibashi set 2 movements. Some of them might be a little bit challenging, so be prepared. And I'll do my mix of seated and standing. You know the rules. Let's get started. Keeping on this theme of kind of continuity of a sense of transitions and connections and things like that. And some of the movements lend themselves very nicely into these kinds of progressions. Let's start off with Qi Shi, just to start this first little progression. And we're also going to perhaps do a few more reps of each movement than we might have done previously, again, to see if we can just get into a kind of bit of a flow, or even a flow state, where we can just almost let the movement take care of itself. You might find moments where the breath just wants to go with the movement. Oh, keep going, folks, because here comes Richard. Let me let him in. And then I'm back in position. Okay, let's do one more of these, and then we progress it into opening heart. So we're going to open wide. Again, we're going to do a few sort of reps of this one as well. If I turn to the side just a little bit, we're opening through the chest, but keeping the shoulders relaxed and down. Opening up, create that landscape that I've talked about previously. Shoulders are the high point, down to the elbows, slightly up to the wrists, and then we kind of trail off through the fingers of each hand. Last one of these. We're going overhead, so just bear that in mind as we pick the hands right up or as far as you feel comfortable, and then bring them down. So I'm a little bit off to the side. And welcome, Richard. Good to have you with us as we come down. Again, if the breath fits in with this lift, and then on the down, just let it happen. So much of this idea of continuity and flow is sometimes about getting out of the way of ourselves, so to speak. Kind of letting things happen. Taking the back seat, maybe. Okay. One more. And then we're going to come and bring our palms together. You can bring your feet a bit closer if necessary. And we're rotating them up. We're getting a bit of a stretch in the forearms before stretching forwards, coming down, and just creating this cycle. If your palms don't come together, that's okay. Don't force things. Work with your body. Again, we're going to fit the movement to the person, not the person to the movement. That seems a much more eminently sensible way to do things, given that we're such a diverse group. But again, just nice, easy cycles or series of repetitions. not thinking too much about it. Last cycle. Okay, let's just have a kind of bit of a move in our seat or just on our feet or limbs, just to ease pressure where we may have built up pressure. And then we're going to do breeze blows through the willow trees. It's been, as I say, it's not been breezy here. It's been a bit of a gale at times here. I'm going to slide my right foot forward. That might not necessarily be easy for some of you. So again, fit the movement to you rather than forcing yourself into any precarious situations. But then we're going to sweep the hands to and fro. If you're seated, I hope you've got some arm space around you. And even if we're just stood in place, have a little bit of emphasis onto that right side in particular, if we can lead on that right side. Don't worry if not. And again, just easy sweeps of the hands and arms, shoulders, very loose and relaxed. Okay, we're going to do a bit of a transition. If you had that right leg forward, seated or standing, bring it back. If you were stood in place, just prepare yourselves. Sometimes just turning a foot out. You see that with my left foot? Just turning it out in the direction of which you intend to go is sometimes just enough to help. Maybe just a little bit forward. Again, it all depends on foot units, knee units, socket comfort, so many things. So again, you do you. Work within the bounds of your space as well. And just how things feel. And again, we're just sweeping the hands. We sometimes think of the shoulders a bit like a coat hanger. I think I've talked about this previously. And we almost hang our arms from an imaginary coat hanger, so to speak. Sometimes we think of our hands and arms like a jacket being worn. And that can really help us get the sense of having very loose, free swinging hands and arms. Okay, one more sweep before we come back. Okay, so I'm going to put you on a little boat, a bit like a punt, if you've ever been to Cambridge or somewhere where they do punting. And you're going to balance on that punt, standing up, and we're going to be shifting our weight from one side to the other. So we're going to tip that punt a little bit. But as we do so, we're going to be casting a net from one side to the other. Let's start, shall we, with the left hand just down by the waist, pointing outwards. The right hand sweeps over the top. So we've got both hands facing in the same direction. We're going to shift some weight towards the right and we're going to sweep the hands around, turn them over, and then shift some weight to the left and sweep them back again. Turn the hands over and we begin to get into this rhythm of gently sweeping our hands while we also gently tip our boat from one side to the other. We're in control of that tip, though. So we're not going anywhere near the tipping point, as they might say. We're safely within bounds, but it gets us working our hips, even if that tip is just a little bit. And I know this is a challenging one, so if you need to pause and rest, do so. If you can, hang in there for a few more goes each side. Do so. If you sat down, shifting weight from one hip to the other in our seat. Okay, I'm going to sweep back one more time to the center. Don't worry if we ended up out of sync. Ooh, and have a rest. We're going to come back to that boat in a little while, but not just yet. We need to kind of recoup and kind of just ease off a little bit. I can feel that in my hips, so I can imagine you may well be feeling it in yours as well. Okay, so that was Fisherman casts their nets. We'll do one of my favorite movements, Stork pays homage to the moon. This is really nice. We can start with a nice hip width stance, nice broad base if we're sat down. We do need some arm space as we lift the hands out to the sides. We're looking up. And that's one thing that we do have tonight is a clear sky. And then we bring the palms together and they come down. We're pushing our elbows out so we get a bit of a stretch in the forearms and shoulders. And then we gently let that relax and ease off as we drop the hands down. And then we pick up again. Hands up. And then they begin to drop down. I know they disappear as they go up, but you get the idea as they come into view, down, and then relax. Here we go again, lifting. Could be a breath in. And then down. Just like so. Okay, I'm going to sit down just to join folks who are seated for a moment. But we're sticking with this same movement to make our movement a little bit more challenging for balance. Whether we're seated or standing, we bring our feet together or close-ish. So I'm bringing my feet and my knees kind of together in my seat. If you are able to do that standing up, but make sure that you're not so wobbly that you will fall over. I don't want you falling over. And because we're looking up a little bit, that also is a challenge to our balance. So yeah, just gauge things for you. But we bring the hands up again. I'm looking up to see the hands come together and then dropping down. But simply by bringing feet together, that can just be quite a challenge on our balance. Perhaps we ought to say that we're really working on stability, maybe more than balance, to maintain that position. I'm going to go up again. And down. Lovely. I like that movement. Okay. Take a bit of a wider stance again. I'll start seated for our next one. It's rolling waves. And unlike in the first set of Shibashi, where we stick with one side, here we alternate from left to right or right to left, whichever side you start with. If you're standing, you can do a little transition where you turn each respective foot out. Or if you're able to, you can do a little bit of a step in that direction. Again, you do you, and work safely within a comfortable range of motion. I'm going to pick my hands up. I'm going to go to my right first. I draw the hands back, they drop into the water, and I do a little diagonal push off to the right. As I'm drawing them back, I'm turning to then do the same on the left. So there's a certain amount of organization that we need to do with our bodies in order to facilitate this transition from one side and then to the other. So by moving slowly, we've got time to figure out what's the best way, or perhaps the easiest way. Again, the philosophy of Tai Chi is about finding the easy way. Sometimes it's called the watercourse way. Famous book written by Alan Watts. Some of you may have heard of him. But water finds its way from a hilltop all the way down to the ocean. And we want to do the same with each movement. Find the easy way that works for you. So I think that's a good philosophy for us who live with limb loss or limb difference. But again, we're thinking about adapting and modifying all the time, aren't we? And that's so indicative of what we're actually trying to do in Tai Chi. Adapt, modify, change things to make life as easy as we can within the circumstances that we have. Okay, one more push to each side, as I've waxed a little bit lyrical there. Okay. Good job. That in itself is quite a challenging movement. There's some weight shift. Again, stabilization is a key part of that movement, and certainly in Shibashi set 2, there's quite some challenges. So again, do pause if you need to. I'm going to stand back up because we're back on our little punt, balancing. So if you can, bit of a wider stance, even if you sat down, have a sense of creating a base. So if we're sat or stood on our punt, we're going to release some arrows to the left and right. That's quite good fun. Here we go. We're going to pick our hands up. And I'm going to look to my left, drop the left hand, so that's opening the bow. And then I shift my weight and tip my boat to the right in the opposite direction, just enough. And then I recenter, bring everything back to equilibrium, and then come back. And then we're ready to go again. Picking my hands up, turning, shifting my weight this time to the left as I drop the right hand, look to the right. And then slowly, slowly rebalance my boat. This again is quite a challenging movement because we're having to stabilize our imaginary boat very slowly. And as we draw our bow, that's quite a challenge. So don't go too far in your imagining of tipping that boat. So I'm just going from one side to the other. Again, just getting into a bit of a flow. Sometimes gets easier after you've done a few goes. Might be a bit fatiguing, but sometimes things just begin to kind of find a way of organizing themselves. I'm going to go once more to each side. If we've ended up a little bit out of sync, that's okay. As I said, you do you. We're going to finish after this particular one and draw back. Shooting arrows. Good stuff. Okay. Because there's a moon in the sky, we'll do perhaps one of my very favorite movements. You may have your favorite movements out of these sets that I do with you. You can always let me know in my WhatsApp group if you've got some very kind of favorite movements? Let me know, because I might make a feature out of everyone's favorite movements if you want to fire away on WhatsApp if you've got nothing better to do. Okay, so here we go. We're going to do carrying the moon towards your body. Our moon is going to flit from left to right. I'm going to have it on the right side first of all. I need to shift some weight and bring my hands up and around that moon, and then carry it back. So that's quite a tricky movement. And then slowly bring it down. It's almost like a ballet move. We kind of come into second position, for those of you who've done ballet. And then looking up to the left, shifting weight, reaching over to that side, taking hold of the moon. I know my hands have disappeared, but you can see that they've clasped the moon and brought it down. Here we go again, to the right again. Work within a range that is comfortable for you, that offers just enough challenge, but not too much challenge. But you know that you're having to work a little bit at least to maintain stability. You can probably feel muscles in your trunk, particularly in the sides of your trunk, working, as well as in the back and the shoulders and chest, just to do this imaginary capture and lower of the moon. Okay, one more to each side. I said it was one of my favorites, so I'll get to do it a few more times. There we go. Coming back and down. Ooh, have a little bit of a rest. Okay. Going to box someone's ears. So if you've got someone in mind, a favourite politician perhaps, keep that to yourselves. We're going to box their ears. We can do this stood in place or sat down. Can even do it with a little bit of a step. Once again, you work within a range that suits you. And we start with our hands tucked in loose little fists. If I'm taking a little step to the right, I drop the hands and sweep them round and bring the thumbs together as if boxing someone's ears. Move back. And then I do the same on the left with a turn to the left. Again, you've got to carefully organize, weight shift, perhaps a readjustment of your feet in order to facilitate this movement. So again, take your time and box someone's ears. If you have someone in mind, that can sometimes help. But as I say, don't be telling. Just going from one side to the other. Just like so. Okay. One more time, whichever side you are on. Come back like so. Okay. One more challenging movement, guys. Okay. Last one, and then we'll kind of begin to wrap things up. It's called Phoenix, rising into the sky, or sometimes Phoenix flies into the sky. Very similar to the moon carrying movement, where we shift weight from one side to the other. There's a bit of a look upwards. We start in that same start position. Second position, ballet. Only this time, As we look up to the right and shift some weight, we do a big wing beat. If you can bring the backs of the hands together, do so, and then the wing beat comes down, and then we've got to organize that wing beat for the left side. Again, it's a challenge of stability and balance, poise, all those things. Muscles of the trunk are working, particularly as we lift the hands overhead, even if we're sat down, stabilizing ourselves can be quite a task. Okay, one more. Hopefully we're on the same side roughly. Come back. Ooh, there you go. Phoenix rising from the flames. Okay, I'm going to come a bit closer. I'm going to sit down. If you're still standing, I hope you are. You can do so. And we'll do gather celestial energy and gather Earth's energy. Hopefully our familiar little 2-sequence movement that kind of rounds things off nicely. And if you're seated with me, hands can either be on the tops of the knees or thighs, or if you've got the room, hanging loosely by your sides. And together, we just bring the hands up, look up to that night sky, stars and the moon, certainly where I am, and then bring some stars down to earth. And sweep the hands around, gather those stars, and drop the hands, drop the stars, bring the hands up. We gather our blankets, which we probably have a few of to wrap up in, and then let the blanket fall away as well. Time for one more of those, so let's go. Gather celestial energy, looking up to a night sky. Bring some stars down. Circle the hands, gather your stars, and then let the stars go. Let's take our blanket, the blanket of the earth, as we think about it, wrapping ourselves in a rich tapestry of colour. And then we let that fall away. And that, folks, is that. So thank you for joining me. I know that might have been quite a challenge for stability and balance. Sometimes we need to challenge ourselves. So I hope that's been okay and not too much. Let me know. And I'll get the recording done as soon as possible. And I'll see you next week. So take care, everyone. Let me stop the recording. If anyone has any questions, hang on. Or if not, give me a wave. And we'll see you next time. See you, Kate. See you,
Bye,
Helen.
everyone.
See you,
Have a good
Ellie.
week.
Thanks, Richard.
Bye.
Thank you, Phil.